When I got the letter about the reunion, I read through this whole thing back in the fall and says, I don't know how interested I am. And then I see at the end of the letter in the fall, Barry M. Feinberg. I think I know him. And I call up, and sure enough, it was a fellow I used to drive home to the Bronx all the time for my fraternity parties down in Greenwich Village. But it's given us an opportunity, actually, to reconnect with a lot of people from 50 years ago. And it's quite amazing how the years melt away when you call somebody and they remember it like it was just yesterday. But actually, the reason I was prodded a little bit by my lovely wife, Susan, out there, to come and mention somebody who had a long-lasting impact on my life and what turned out to be a career. I wound up, I'm now Dean Emeritus of the Graduate School at New Jersey Institute of Technology. But there's a professor who only retired a couple of years ago from the Mechanical Engineering Department at City College. His name is Latif Chigi. So I don't know if any of you recall who he is or if you ever met him. I had Latif back in it's got to be 62 or 63, the very first class that he ever taught at City College. And of course, he had a beard and a mustache, and I thought he had to be terribly old. As it turned out, we became lifelong friends. I had some difficulties during my time at City College. I was a great student for a year and a half. Then my father passed away. I dropped out. Spent a year and a half trying to find my way, and it took a while. But he never lost faith in me. And I wasn't the best student he ever had. He told me that. But the last year and a half, I became the good student I had started with. And things went on, and I said, this is about 8 years later, I said, maybe I'll try this PhD thing and see how that works out. And I went to him hoping he'd be my advisor, but then he was off again on some sabbatical leave somewhere. And I wound up working with a person I had met named Robert Pfeffer, who also retired from City College in chemical engineering. He was the provost for a while here. And we have remained lifelong friends. But I spoke to Latif just a couple of months ago about perhaps being here tonight. But he's never forgotten me, and I have never forgotten him, and I have never forgotten all of that inspiration that I got here at City College. It changed my life. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Ron. Yes, ma'am.
As I said, I believe that I definitely have to speak because we're sitting at the table, most of you are 65 grads. I graduated in 55. And when I came to City College, I had attended first the High School of Music and Art when it was still major when it was still the castle on the hill. So obviously, my next point would be to go across to City College. Also in 1950, that was the year that they admitted women for the first time. And as counter, they admitted men. So for me, it was really absolutely marvelous. Going to classes, and you were just about maybe 5 women, but all of these deliciously wonderful men. And that was the first time. But City College was a magnificent place. And those of us who were here during that particular time, we reminisce quite often on Lewiston Stadium and a great many things. One fond memory I have was the year that Dylan Thomas came to our school. And at that time, the Great Hall, as you may remember, was such a magnificent place. Now you have to picture this. And you know Dylan's on, if you remember that. And his wonderful Welsh tone and voice, there it was in the late afternoon, about 4 o'clock, and it was raining outside. So you had this marvelous lighting and his wonderful booming voice reading his poetry. Well, those are one of the few memories, only one of the many, many memories that City College had to me. And I thank you all for being part of it, magnificent as it was, and as it still is. Congratulations to you, my love, and may your life be extraordinarily as marvelous as you are.
Well, I'm also in the class of 55, and I started City College in February of 51. One of the reasons I went to City College was in 1950, City College won the double tournament in basketball. They won the NIT and the NCAA. And Adolph Rupp from Kentucky said they couldn't touch my boys with a 10-foot pole. And actually with City College they developed a fast break. It's used in basketball now. So that's one of the reasons I went to City College. 3 weeks later I'm riding on the subway and I look over my shoulder and I see a headline in the Daily News, 3 City College players indicted for point shooting. So much for school spirit. In any case, the Korean War had broken out and engineering was a deferred category, so it looked like a good reason to take engineering. And I graduated in 55, and the guest speaker was somebody who was a City College graduate, Dr. Joe Russo. I just wanted to relate those things to you.
I'm a lawyer 52 years. I'm a village judge in Westchester 33 years. And I have a public confession to make to you. On my oath and on my own. It wasn't until 5 years ago that I became inspired by City College. I don't know what it was. Yes, I graduated in January of 60 on a Friday, and I started law school on the following Monday. And my high school at Jamaica High School was a wonderful experience for me. And I became very, very active and involved in that high school. Not so much at NYU Law School, no. But somehow, City College didn't really have that meaning to me. Although I must say, halfway through college, and I commuted from far reaches of Queens 3 hours each day, halfway through law school, I meant to say, we ran out of money. Tuition was $625 a semester. I'll do the math, that's $1,250 a year. And my folks and I didn't have it. And I almost had to drop out of law school at that point, but an aunt came through and we paid her back years later. But I have been inspired by City College in the past 5 years. Sonia Sotomayor and the wonderful conversation that she gave sitting next to you, Lisa, where are you, that evening was part of the inspiration. But now I've gone back and I've become a bit of an historian. And I've had time now in my practice to write, to research, and so I go back to the archives periodically. And I meet with Sidney Van Noort, and I find something to write about and something that inspires me. I wrote the article about Raymond the Bagel Man. I visited his cemetery. I wrote a couple of articles about Adolph Lewison and my connection. Ardsley, Westchester County is where I've lived for 47 years and been the village judge and still am for the last 33 years. Adolph Lewison, that was one of his 4 estates that he owned simultaneously, 356 acres, 40-room mansion, and there was connection there. but I recently wrote an article about City College football. City College, I never even thought it had football, but it did for 75 years, from 4 years after the first college football game was played. And that article will be appearing. And now I'm writing an article about a next-door neighbor named Bernie Kaplan, whom I never knew because he died at age 45 of MS, having been afflicted and an invalid and lost his sight and all his other senses for the last several years of his life. And he lived next door to me before we moved into that house. He was a graduate of City College 1 month after his age of 20. He was a top engineering student. He was president of the Honor Society. He went into the military, and then he went back to teach at City College in 1947. And until about 1961, when afflicted by the MS, another professor who also lived in the village of Ardsley carried him up in his wheelchair up those steps, and he continued to teach as long as he could. But the stories that I have learned and the history of City College from 1847, I invite you, I encourage you to go to the archives, because you will learn so much about it and you will be inspired too. So thank you for letting me get that confession out. I love City College. It took 50 years, but there I am. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Kind of behooves me to say a few words, because all you people are really babies compared to the class of 1950. As an octogenarian, I entered in 1946. It was City College, uptown and downtown. I was a BBA student. I had to go uptown because all the veterans were coming back from the war in 1946, and we were all shipped uptown. But I liked uptown so much that I stayed the entire year. So talking about 1947, I was there when they celebrated the 100th year of City College. And Bernard, yeah, we can applaud because Bernard Baruch was a keynote speaker, and I loved the Great Hall. The Great Hall was fantastic. I mean, the campus was just beautiful in the springtime. And just an aside, it was like, I think the 1947, when a very tall lady from the phys ed department came by and she said, I would like to start a junior varsity, a basketball team of women. Well, I said, what do I have to do? So she said, well, you have to show up for rehearsal, practice twice a week, and you'll get an A for the course. I said, sign me up. I said I couldn't tread water, and I couldn't climb the ropes. I'd still be there. Anyway, it was a marvelous, wonderful experience. And then, of course, there were many of us who, after the year, went downtown for 3. We came up twice a week for practice, and of course, the basketball team, they were fabulous. And even football and baseball, and the history of the college is really something, and I was so happy. It was only $25 tuition. And the veterans who came by got their books for nothing, so I became friendly with a lot of veterans, and I was able to get the books. But it was a marvelous time in my life, and I feel grateful to have had that experience. Thank you all, and stay vertical.
City College was very, very wonderful to me. Believe it or not, I flunked out of City College with a -9. So that, at that time, I was very much involved in playing bid whist. I stayed in the cafeteria playing bid whist. I was interested in City College because there was the place to go, because there were the meals. I had a good time in the city. I went back to the city a lot of years after that and asked them, let me back up. I went to University of Michigan, and University of Michigan said that if City College would let me graduate, let me go to Michigan and make up my credits at Michigan, that I would be able to get my master's at Michigan. So I graduated from Michigan before I graduated from before City. So I got both of my degrees in the same year. The year that I got my master's, I got my baccalaureate at the same time. And that was I was thankful for City of College allowing me to be able to do that. They saw the potential in me to allow me to do that. And I think about Vanessa when she was talking, because it was hard for me at the time. I used to live in Queens, and to come up to City every day from Queens to go to school, and to walk up that hill on 145th Street, and then get back home at night, I think was part of the fun, really, even though I was exhausted at the same time. So I thank City College for allowing me to have that opportunity to get a master's and a baccalaureate degree in the same year.
Good evening, everyone. How do you read me? Loud and clear? Very good. My name is Seymour Bernstein, but boys and girls call me Si, particularly the girls. Particularly one young lady who greeted me at the opening table. She's right up front here. She's got curves that are outstanding. But anyway, I started City College. First of all, I was a native of Manhattan on 33rd Street and 3rd Avenue. I lived there for 20 years. And I started at City College uptown in the School of Technology to become an engineer. That was my goal. But my father, he kept pushing me to switch to business. And you'll do pretty well. You'll take over my business. And I don't know what year it was, 38, 37, 39. LaGuardia Airport just opened up. And there was a big celebration. And my dad took me there. And I got the feeling of the air and airplanes and aviation. I wanted to be now an aeronautical engineer. And he said, no, switch to business. So after hitting me over the head a number of times, I succumbed to his desire, and I switched to the School of Business down on 23rd Street, and studied and majored in accounting. And somehow, I don't know why, in accounting, we had to write a thesis to graduate. So I got the feeling of LaGuardia Airport in my mind, and I wrote on the subject of the promotion of air travel. How some airlines had men as stewards, and some had women as stewardesses to attract the male on the foreign public. But I wrote on the thesis, and lo and behold, United Airlines had a contest on the subject of air travel. And I took a chapter in my thesis and submitted it. And as luck would have it, I was one of 4 winners in the States who got free scholarship to United Airlines School called the Boeing School of Aeronautics out on the West Coast in Oakland. But I didn't wasn't an accredited school. So after 2 years out there, I got an aeronautical engineering diploma, I guess, but it was really a license to be an aircraft or engine mechanic. And thus I graduated City College in 1940 and Boeing School in 1942. And the war was on, World War II. So I applied to become an aircraft and engine maintenance officer, aircraft maintenance officer in the Air Force. And they quickly took me, and I became a second lieutenant in the Air Force. And then they asked the volunteers to take an altitude chamber test. See if you could withstand a high altitude. And I took the test, passed it, and I became what they call a flight engineering officer on a new plane that was still in the works, a new bomber. And I got out to Salinas, Kansas, to fly that airplane as an engineer. We had about 2 models, two planes. And then I decided while I was in the front in the cockpit with the pilots, I said I'd like to be the guy up front. So I applied for pilot training, and sure enough, they sent me to Texas, and I took my lessons, basic, primary, basic, and advanced, and became a pilot. And I got back to Salinas, Kansas, and I was flying troop carriers, taking troops up and dropping them. And they said, you know too much. You got to stay in the training command and teach the bombardiers and navigators and pilots how to coordinate and all that. So I spent the rest of the period in World War II in Kansas as a pilot. Then the war was over, and I fell back on my accounting. And I didn't know how to do that. I tried to get on the airlines as a pilot. They said, you have to start out first as the third pilot. I said, baloney. I'm not doing that. I want to be the first one. So I said goodbye, and I joined the U.S. Treasury Department and fell back on my accounting and worked for the Internal Revenue, auditing companies on their taxes and their tax returns. That was interesting. For 3 years, at least. But while I was doing that, I stayed in the reserve, the Air Force Reserve, and flew 1 weekend a month, a Saturday and Sunday, out of Mitchellfield, Long Island. And we got 4 days pay for Saturday and Sunday. I guess a half of Saturday, 2 halves was 2 days, and 2 halves of Sunday was 2 days. 4 days with flying pay. which was good. And while I was doing that, I went to night school on a GI Bill. And I went to NYU Law School and studied law, particularly its relation to taxes. And I enjoyed it. But in '51, when I graduated law school, the United States got involved in Korea. And our reserve unit was reactivated, and we had to go to Japan and Korea for 2 years. So I went off and spent the 2 years there flying troop carriers and others. And I came back. I said, that's enough. No more air service. And I quit. And I decided to finally get married, and I met my wife. And sure enough, we banged out 3 boys. Four. And we decided no more. But 4 years later, we had an accident. The best accident that ever happened. We had a girl. Those 4 kids. I showed them what to do. They have 11 grandchildren.
On behalf of the group, I would like to thank you so much. You've had many careers since JP. One more thing.
And that was all due to the training and schooling I got at City College.
Probably the most successful anti-poverty program in the United States. Just think about it. They enter, 60% of the kids that enter are out of the poverty line. And the day they graduate, they go into middle class. They don't go back to cleaning office buildings at night or running newsstands. They're college graduates, and they are now in the middle class. So I love City College. I've been active for the last 20 years. I encourage anyone who has time now to become active. They're great students, and as I tried to saw what a wonderful place it is. By the way, I had worked for Michael Pope in 1962. He was one of the honorees on Friday, so whenever I see him, I always say, hello, boss. He had hired about 100 engineering students for his firm back in 1962.
A couple of years ago, one of my professors at the college was a fellow that many of you may possibly know. First, I'll describe something about him. He loved to, well, he was a CPA as well as I am, and he wrote many articles complaining about what the accounting firms were doing, which were not exactly legitimate. And he was sued many times. So I say to him, hey, why do you keep writing those articles? You're being sued. He says, yes, Norman, I know that. But that's what I like. I like to see my name in the papers. Anyway, he was a phenomenal professor. And many years later, I met him as I was going to my family out in Long Island to get to Long Island Railroad. At that point, he was almost entirely blind. Yet he showed me a better way to get to Long Island Railroad than I knew about. And he was blind. In any event, he really taught many people at the graduate level who would really appreciate him because he was very theoretical but very practical, and he knew a lot. His name, he passed away. His name is Abraham J. Brilloff. Many of you may have heard of him. Maybe not too many, I think. In any event, I taught at the college from 1965 till a couple of years ago when I retired. Of course, I had attended the school prior to that with my bachelor's and master's degrees. Now, I've found that the student body at Baruch is the most fantastic body in the world. They really wanted to learn, and they did, especially from me. In any event, I trained approximately 18,000 CPAs. I did grading of the CPA exam for many years. I did almost everything that was legitimate in the accounting profession. I stayed away from anything that was not legitimate. And for very good reason, because towards the end of my tenure at the college, most new accounting textbooks included a chapter on ethics. We never thought about that before, but many of you have heard about all the scandals involved with many of the large local firms, national firms. But in any event, it has been a marvelous experience for me. I've never regretted a day of it, and I hope that you mention this to many of your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Have a good evening.
1975. All right, so here's the thing, and here's the drill, because 1975 meant a lot, but it is the future, as this young lady spoke of what's happening now. City meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to all of you. I am where I am because of the opportunity of City College. Let's give to City College, because that's what it's all about. But most importantly, let's remember to keep giving back. We got the opportunity. We know how high college is becoming now, and it's becoming unaffordable. And we got to pull together, and we got to make this dream true for everyone. I thank everyone for making this possible. And class of 1975, I'm challenging all of you to make this possible. Let's get together the scholarships. Let's all work together and make sure we have more Vanessas making it happen here for our college.